Hello everyone. So today I really want to talk to you guys about how can we actually use the AI technology to the learning English. After the introduction episode, I have did some several episodes about how I utilize this ChatGPT and other AI platforms to practice my speaking English. And today also I want to discuss with in this episode about how we can actually improve our speaking English through the AI technology. So before we going into the how we can use AI technology to our speaking practices, let's discuss about the basics when it comes to learning a language. Especially here as an unnative English speaker, I am considering about English because in most cases I have been faced a lot of situations that I have to use English in my everyday life, and as well as while I was using the resources, and in most cases, I have to use the English language. And apart from that, I think I'm also have this idea of uh, studying in a foreign country. So definitely, I might have to study English in that case as well. So anyway, because I have this intention to learn English, I did some research about how to learn a language. So basically, what I was found out is there is no exact framework or exact method to learn a language. In some of the videos and some of the content, actually, some teachers may explain that this is the exact framework to be fluent in this time, this amount of month, and this time of months, and likewise. Those things can be effective because since I did not use most of those courses and platforms, I'm not going to recommend or criticize about any of that because as a person who came from the South Asia, normally normally uh, if you ever learn about in South Asian region, you may understand that the in our area, in most of the time we are prefer to find some cheaper alternative rather than going to the expensive one. So when it comes to the English and learning English, that is actually applicable for me as well, and that is why I have actually researched about how to learn English through this AI technology in most cases with a minimal cost or in most cases for free. Yeah, let's get into the point that we talk about basic. So like I mentioned earlier, there is no actually a exact method or a framework to learn English. There might be some of the techniques and methods that is invented by certain type of people and teachers based on their experience and based on their journeys, because I also have seen that some of the polyglots, especially who are mastered in a variety of languages. Some of the polyglots are actually mastered in more than 10 languages, which is really amazing to me and how they are doing it. So, these type of people actually created some kind of courses and content based on their experience. Those things can be really useful for us in our journey as well. Depend on your affordability and your ability to spend. I'm not going to prevent you from buying those courses or following this type of program. It will be actually really helpful for you because you could get a really good guidance through that type of course. But when it comes to my research, what I was found out is basically people are learning the language in different methods. Because when we look at our childhood, as a child, we actually grew up in different part of the world. I actually grew up in the South India. My culture and my experience of learning the languages might be different from a person who raised in a different part of our country. And when it comes to someone in a different part of the world, in a different country, their cultural background may be even different. The way they raise and the way they learn English or the way they learn their mother tongue. But basically, there are certain one key principle that in most of the cases that is applicable to the language learning. That is called the comprehensible input. I know that this is a theory actually invented by some of the linguistic scientists. I'm not actually remember his name, and in the episode description, I will put a link to the article about this method and as well as the language scientist who found out this method. So based on his research, he found out that in most of the scenarios, people are learning the language through the comprehensible input, which means language input that we are getting from our surrounding. So, I mean, that is really applicable to the way we learn our mother tongue as a child. Because when we were child, we actually learn our mother tongue without any effort, but we were able to learn our mother tongue with ease. Because most of the time we may not remember that, but as the from the moment we born, the people who surrounding us start to speak with us and interact with us, and somehow until we are in 3 to 4 years old, even though we are unable to speak even a word, the people who are surrounding us is try to interact with us by speaking, and we also absorb a lot of information and the use of languages and likewise through our surrounding. So that is he mentioned as the key principle of learning a language. When it comes to ourselves, I mean as adults, the main problem we are having is, even though when we were child we was able to learn our mother tongue, now most of the time we are considering to learn a different language. So in our case, especially in my case, I am trying to learn English. And from someone else's perspective, they might be try to learn a different language like Chinese, Japanese, or Korean, likewise. And in every scenario, the basic principle applicable to here is comprehensible input. There actually might be a different methods and techniques, like I said earlier, in order to learn a language, but comprehensible input is the fundamental of learning language. At this moment, the common problem we all are having is the limited time. Most of us don't have enough time to allocate, especially for the language learning, because sometimes we are working or we might be studying or we might have families and we have to take care of that likewise. So since we are also living in a environment where we, in most of the case, we are getting comprehensible inputs from our mother language, we might not be exposed to the foreign language in a considerable level, and that is the main problem we are having when it comes to learning English. So what could be the solution actually? When it comes to solution, there is no exact solution or a framework I can give to you guys, because I'm also going through this process, I mean number of years right now. I mean, yet I was unable to uh, come to the fluent level in the English. But I believe that I have been improved in a significant level over the years with the current method that I am using right now. So like I said earlier, comprehensible input is the fundamental of learning language. So that is why sometimes, even though some children are not speak at the early stage of their childhood, but later and suddenly they start to speak and interact with people in a much very fluent way, because they have this comprehensible input that is stored in their mind for a long time of period. So we also have to build up this type of habit and behavior. We need to create an environment where we consume a lot of English content every day. It can be actually something that you are like to watch, something like you reading, or any type of content. I mean, since most of us right now we are having a smartphone, in most cases we are consuming the content through the English language. But yet, I think that is not enough, because when it comes to children, they have this curiosity about the world and their environment. But right now, since we are grown up and we familiarize with our environment, we don't have any curiosity. So we we don't look at the language with the curiosity. Even though when we heard something from English language, or even though we see some English words, that is not going to our mind and is stored, because of we don't have any curiosity or the focus. Basically, if you want to improve your English and become somewhat comfortable in using English, you have to actually be familiarized with this process and being curious about the language. That means whenever you heard or see and interact with your environment, and when you're getting the inputs from your environment which is related to the English language, you need to be curious about that and give your focus. And that is how you can actually store this comprehensible input in your mind for a long term. Otherwise, if you don't give a focus, it might be difficult for you to, if you don't give the focus, it might be really difficult for you to understand the comprehensible input. The principle of comprehensible input is understanding the language step by step. If you are in a certain level, let's suppose you are in the English knowledge of level 1, that means a basic level. For a long time, while you are exposing to the uh, comprehensible input from English, you able to sustain in the level 1. And then when you are getting comprehensible input again and again and again, your level is increasing little by little by little. So that is how this comprehensible input method works. But yet, I don't think that is enough, because even though we have so much comprehensible input in our mind, a basic purpose of language is communicate. So if you look at the children, from the moment they able to speak with other people, they are saying different things from the inputs that they are getting. They try to connect the words and use the information and inputs that they are getting and express something with their parents. From their childhood, since they have a lot of time, and since they have a lot of time and support, they were able to build the language really easy. But when it comes to ourselves, we don't have that much time and as well as support. So because of that, somehow we have to practice our speaking. That means we have to express something in the language that you are trying to learn. In our case, we need to express things in English. And as well as we also need to try to build a certain type of new content from the inputs that we are getting. It's okay if you make mistakes or any type of errors, but in order to understand the language, and in order to you to understand that you are understand the language, you have to produce what you have been observed through your comprehensible input. That is actually why we are using the technique of talking with the AI and correcting ourselves. And that is what I want to explain in here, because if we don't use what we are absorbing and we are unable to produce something, if we are unable to communicate, there is no point of learning the language or getting so much comprehensible input. So that is what we are doing in here. We are trying to practice speaking by explaining about different topics that we learn, and we also consume a lot of English content, and we try to speak about these topics, contents that we consume over the time, and we try to express ourselves through the English language which we are targeting to learn. And that is what you should also have been do. In order to learn a language, it is not enough to learn about the vocabulary, and it is not enough to learn about the grammar, and it is not enough to learn the theories behind all about the language learning. You have to speak up and practice, practice, and practice. And that is how you will be able to speak your targeted language, in our case, English. That is what I want to explain in this episode to you guys. I think you guys may understand that what I have trying to say. I mean, you may also understand that as a English learner at in the beginner level, I'm also making a lot of mistakes. And in this podcast also, I'm also focusing people like me, beginners who are willing to learn the language. So I think this will be a really good episode for the everyone who are willing to and interested in learning the language uh, at the beginner level. So try this method of learning language.